welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on a Django app, and tonight we're going to be working on a bulk delete page that is something I started last week. It's about deleting tasks that's within my homeschool application. So hopefully you'll be able to stick around for that. That's the plan. If you want to catch up with me in other places, you can do that. I'm on Twitter, GitHub, usually all my social networks as MB Lehman. I'm also on YouTube. You can search for Matt Lehman and find past recordings from this stream if you're catching this live or want to catch up on this project and see what this homeschool app is about. Also, if you are enjoying what you see and you want to support me financially, you can do so. That's at patreon.com/mblehman. And I want to shout out and thank my existing patrons that are over there of Rupert, Andrew, Dragos, Patrick, Eric, Philip, Miguel, Peter, and Shiva. Thank you all for your support. It helps me to cover costs for various content that I try and produce for the community, and a little bit for my time, which is just it's appreciated. All right, let's get into the project for this evening. As always, you can ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. That's what I'm here for. My goal is to work on the project, but I also am more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, especially if you're new to Python and web development. I can dig into all that stuff too. So last week we set up a view and we started to prepare most of this stuff, but we have more to do, as you can see here. And we're going to continue on this path that's here. And we have a bunch of things that are left to do, as you can see, that are marked by these to-dos. So in fact, I want to bring up the to-dos. There are more that might be helping us to figure out where to start. Let's also bring up this test file. So we'll have both the code file and the test file that are going. And this is the test that we wrote. And I don't remember if it's passing or not. Well, phooey. I upgraded. All right, hold on, y'all. Sorry. I upgraded my local operating system Python, and I didn't think to check it all, it's definitely not doing what I expected to do. I also maybe restarted my terminal, so maybe this will work better this time. Sorry about that. Let's try again. Let's see if I have it in better shape. So we wanted come on. This was to do 446, I think. Okay. How about now? There we go. That's better. So I wanted to test that and see if we left ourselves with a failing test or passing test. It's pretty clear that the test is passing. So we're going to work with this. There's to-do comments. There are things that were not here that, or were not done that are commented out. And that's what we'll have to do. And there's some proper breadcrumbs of we need to update and check on the messaging too, which is also in the view. So we'll have both areas of the code open and we'll get into it. What do we need? We need a form. The form, we can also, I guess, look at the specific area that we're working on as a reminder. No, we can't. I don't have a template yet. There's all sorts of things to do, I'm remembering. But we're going to need to look at this eventually anyway, so let's go ahead and bring it up. And then we can carry on from there. Man, I've got all sorts of things going on here. I've been booted out of my test account. So let me sign back in there. Okay. We were on a delete page where the goal of this is to go to a course. And we added this button, which I'm not super happy with the name yet. We might rework that. But we want to have it so that when a user clicks on this, they'll be taken to a page that displays all of the tasks for the course and with little checkboxes by them that allows the user to select a bunch at once, click a button that says delete, get a little confirmation that actually deletes them, and then brings them back to this page. That's where we're at. And you can even notice that we didn't even wire up this button to the proper thing. Last time we made the view and made some initial tests, but we didn't actually get to hooking it all in. So right now this button is going to a resources URL, and it needs to go somewhere else. So let's go take a look. The view that we need to go to is the course task delete bulk. So we can go to the course detail page, course detail, and find the new button that we have, which says delete in it. So here it is. We can remove this comment and then switch this to task bulk delete. So this will get us to a page that at least starts where we want to be, and it still has the right course connection in the URL, so that doesn't need to change. If we refresh this page, whoops, what did I do? Courses, task bulk delete, task bulk delete. What? That is correct over there. And this looks correct. What is it saying? Reverse on task bulk delete not found. Task bulk delete is not a valid view function or pattern name. Well, that's curious. Especially curious because here it is with the same name. Did I type it wrong? Oh, it's not. I'm reading it backwards. It's task delete bulk. Easy oversight there. Okay, that's better. Now, if we go to this page, there's nothing here yet. And the reason for that is when we started with an empty template. So we need to populate this template, but we'll do that a little bit later. I think what we want to do first is make sure that the actual view, the core business logic works that we expect. They'll allow us to define what is the expectation of the data that we want coming into this, and hammer all that down, and then we can work on the template and the design of that. Up on this view, we already checked for authentication, we check an access control, we check that the page can be rendered, which we just saw. Even though it's rendering nothing, it can safely be rendered, and that's tested in a test. And then this delete is the actual, this is where we wanted to test the action. When the page gets rendered, I'm not passing any form to it yet. And I think the reason, my thinking behind that was the form that we need to build is fairly, what's the right word? It's fairly custom, I think. Maybe there are easier ways to do this that we should probably check on, but essentially I'm going to pick a name that will have something like the data that can be passed to it would be a set of IDs that I was planning to use with task. Actually, you can see the pattern right here. Task ID, and those will be like checkboxes in the form. And I was going to make the form in its save response do the actual confirmation that the tasks belong to the person in question. So there'll be a clean method on that will know how to reject it if they don't, and that will actually be that's just the safety check to make sure that someone can't accidentally delete somebody else's course tasks. They shouldn't be able to, but that is what that check is going to be for. It wouldn't be possible from the actual UI, so somebody would have to fiddle with the actual post to the backend, to the actual view. But it's still a good thing to have some sanity check to make sure that people can't do anything nefarious. So the form is going to have two kind of operations. There's going to be a clean, and there will be a save. And so we ultimately need to have something like if form is valid, and we haven't created the form yet, so just assume it will be there. And then we'll do form.save, and it will return the number of deleted tasks, like that, and we'll message here. Yeah, we'll have to decide. We want to have the messages be only when valid. And then there's a question here of like, what happens if the form was invalid? So I guess there's really an else condition of, some kind of error message. So I guess there's something to do there. And I'm just trying to put in all of the bits that I think are still going to be needed, so we can see what the ultimate outcome is going to be. So an error message that will like re-render the page and give them a second chance to do that. Again, this should only happen if they're monkeying with the actual payload, so that shouldn't be a problem. And then the actual like redirection should be happening here. So essentially, if it's doing a delete request, this gets even more challenging. Okay, let's talk about this. So the delete request is going to be coming from HTMX. It's the HTMX is the library that I'm using to do a little bit of dynamic stuff. It's going to provide the ability to do a confirmation page, and it will do an AJAX request to issue a proper HTTP delete call. Now, because of that, this path can't just return a rendered response because it's being done by AJAX. So we need to figure out what to do with the AJAX response. And my answer at this point, like, may be nothing. It may be just, well, we may poke at this, see what HTMX has in terms of its error capability. Can I force a refresh to another page? Because if I was able to force a reload of the page, I could put in some kind of error message. So we could say, error, something went wrong, or you don't have permission to do that. I don't know. And then, because it will be a message that will be added to the cookie, if we were able to trigger a refresh of the current page, it would show up as an error on the top of the page. Not perhaps the best experience, but that could work. But we're not going to do that part yet. And frankly, we're not. There's a bunch of pieces here that we're just assuming will work, but that's not the case. We will know that this numbering stuff will change. So we can make this an F string and say deleted tasks count, and we want that to be an F string. So that uses that. The bit that we need here still is the form itself. So let's say that we'll make up a name for now. This is the, do I already have a good form, existing form name for this kind of stuff? I don't think so. There's a course form, course resource form, course task form. So this probably feels like a course task bulk delete form, I think. And the data here, oh, this is an interesting question. I'm used to dealing with like post, where if you do if the method is a post, you could do request dot post as like all of the data that was submitted. Because this is coming in as a delete, I don't actually know where that data is going. So where is the delete data coming from? That's a good question that we're going to have to answer. We don't have this form yet, so let's just keep working. Like, this is kind of error-driven development. Let's keep working backwards until we get the thing we want. Tyzone, do I specialize in e-commerce? No, I wouldn't say that I specialize in e-commerce. My app has a membership element to it, so I use Stripe to do that. In my day-to-day work, I work for Doctor on Demand, and we charge people who want to do video calls, but neither of those has like an e-commerce element to it. I suppose. Well, it depends on what you mean by your question. If you have a more specific question, I'm happy to try and answer it. I generally view my work as like the commerce aspect of it is I do expect people to pay for the service that I'm working on, but I don't think of myself as like an e-commerce specialist in that way. But I could just be misunderstanding the specifics of your question. All right, so we've got this course task form. If I'm going to stick with some kind of pattern, alphabetical is not a bad one. So I'm going to say course task bulk delete form, and this will just be a standard Django form. We're not going to use a model to drive from this because we're going to be looking at the data ourselves. So we need to, what do we need to do? I need to put just a little something there first. So like I said, we need two methods. We need a clean method. So the general pattern for clean is to have a clean, and you make sure you return the clean data in case there are subclasses that want to use it. So let's put in just the basics of that. Whoops. So that's one method. And we're also going to need a save method. And the save method also does not take any kind of parameters. And it's going to return a deleted task count, which we don't have yet. So let's do this. Let's see if we can make the test that we have still continue to pass. So I'm going to hard code this to 42 for the moment. And we'll add a doc string here. It says delete the selected tasks. And the clean method that we're going to eventually add is ensure the task IDs only apply to the user's school. So even writing that down, I'm recognizing that there's going to be more information that we need. Like at this point, we're not going to have the user, so we're going to have to pass that into the form so that we can do that actual clean checking. So let's actually, while we're here, I'm sure there's one that where I already use that. We'll take this as the user that we want, and we'll drop that here. So that'll give us a user that we can use a little later. We can go back down to the form. We know for a fact that the form is going to take a user, and so we'll say user equal, well, this is going to be after the positional parameter. So we'll say user is equal to self, nope, not a class-based view, so request.user. And because we have the login required decorator here, we know that this user is a real user. So we don't need to do any checking on whether this is an anonymous user or anything like that sort. Okay, so I think that's like the scaffolding to make sure that this will work. And we'll get down to the real heart of it. Let's try and run the test, see what happens, see if I blew anything up. Nope. Looks like it was able to get the user out of the keyword arguments, and our form is set up and ready to go. Now, let's go, before we move on, this is still, I want to resolve this question. Where does the delete data go? So let's go over to the Django docs and look at the HTTP request. And it might be just like post, but it might be called delete or something. Oh, interesting. Hmm. Oh, where is this? This is not where I thought it would be. This is the Django wiki. Oh, that's interesting. So two separate products there. My day-to-day job, yes, I work for Doctor On Demand. It is a company, and I am an employee at the company. The project you're seeing here that we're working on tonight is this school desk application. This is my own creation, and I am the creator and owner of this company with this project. So two separate things. I'm really confused about why this is taking me. Did I click here? I must have clicked that by accident. Thank you, Tyzone. Appreciate that. All right. So this is the raw. How long have I been doing web development? Ooh, good question. A long time. Let's see. In Python. So timeline. I started doing Python in 2007. So yeah, that's that. But I didn't start like doing web dev in Python like right away. So I switched to a company in 2014 that was a Python with Django shop. And then, so from that point on, like I have two jobs. I've had two jobs since 2014, and I'm currently still employed. I have been Python and Django. Prior to that, WordPress is a good tool. It depends on what you need. WordPress can be a fantastic tool. Like I used a WordPress site for a while for a blog, and it's pretty great. So I've done Python professionally for a web thing. I've also used not just Django, so I've done Python and Pyramid as another pair that I've worked on. In graduate school, I did Turbo Gears and Pylons. That was more of like at a hobbyist project level though. I also did a bunch of like Java web frameworks that I don't even remember all their names. JSP, yeah. I did. I had to do. So I used to work for Lockheed Martin as a defense contractor and did web work in there, plus a bunch of like satellite software and things that had nothing to do with the web. So for a time, I did C# development with ASP.NET MVC. I did Perl web development. You get to be my age, you do a lot of languages, I suppose. I'm not new to this industry, I guess, at this point. So 2006, that makes me 15 years in the industry, and that gives me enough time to work on all sorts of things. Good questions though. Appreciate I always like trotting down memory lane there. You're a shortcut type of guy. Yeah. I'm all for shortcuts. Let's see if we can find what other data, how we get the data that we want for a delete request. This is interesting. I'm going to be curious as to, so there's kind of two levels that go on with this, is that we're going to use HTMX to do a delete request. I don't know how it's going to send the data by default. So if it sends it as a form post, how do I process that? How does Django going to know? Let's see if Django HTMX has any answers here. This is a fairly new project. It's not one that I've incorporated into this app, but I do know of it, and I do have a good deal of respect for Adam Johnson, who has made a lot of packages for the Django community, and this is a small project that integrates HTMX with Django, and I'm wondering if there's anything that kind of hooks in the data handling for HTTP requests. I don't know. I'm not seeing anything at first blush. So this might be one of those things that we do a mock-up in the template and try it out and just poke at the network and see what happens. I suppose we could also go to htmx.org, and maybe there's probably some reference here about what to do with the delete. Yeah. Okay. Delete will cause an element. All right. Maybe there's not data being passed, in which case maybe I need to use a post. Yeah, poking at the network. So what I meant, if that was unclear, like what I mean, I just mean bring up the dev tools, click a button, watch the requests, and click some tabs through here. So sorry if I was being vague there. I don't intend to be. So we would use hx delete, and maybe hx delete is only expecting you to use a single URL, in which case that's not what we want. You can control the data submitted with the request parameters. Okay, this is not the area that I thought it would be. Okay, well, cross that bridge when we get to it. For the moment, we can actually, you know what, to make this easier, let's just assume that it's going to be a post for now, because that would do accurate testing, and I know the behavior patterns that's going to come from there. So maybe delete is workable, but post is certainly not a wrong way to go about doing this. It's just maybe slightly semantically more correct if we did a delete when we're doing a delete operation. Although maybe that's not true, because a delete operation, if we treat HTTP as a semantic by the URL, then it might be like a delete operation should be able to be specified by a URL, which is to say, like tasks/42, a specific ID in the URL, which is not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to delete a bunch of things at once. So post might actually be the right answer. And let's go with that. Okay. So we need to make sure that the form works, and we need to do the validation on it, because the validation is like the next thing. So the view is going to check is valid, and is valid is going to call clean. And because we're not specifying any form fields, there's actually not going to be anything in the cleaned data dictionary, because there was nothing to clean, I think. How is my company doing? My small side project company is doing fine. It was actually something that I built specifically for my family. So this is a homeschool application. We homeschool my kids here. I've got 2 children, and my wife is the educator, so I built this tool for her initially, and then once it was at a mature enough state, I got it ready to share with others. So I've done that and gotten on some like forums for communities that we're part of, and I've got a handful of customers right now. So I think this month is like the first month that I'm going in the black on this with the actual like server costs and stuff. And I didn't mind like not making a profit initially, because this again was something I built for my family. And if this is a tool that my wife used, then just paying a little bit of money to run some servers to run the application for her was a totally reasonable cost. But having some actual customers on top of that to help cover that and defray that cost is pretty cool. It doesn't actually cost a lot. So I don't mind sharing this. This is whatever. Let's look at some profit and loss data. So I have a spreadsheet, nothing complicated. This is a side project. And since this stream is about talking about SaaS, software as a service, let's take a peek behind. I don't normally show this data, and it's not that important. I don't have to have anything incriminating or odd in here, but you can see exactly how much this is made. So I paid for a domain on Hover. That's where I got the school desk. That cost me about $20 a year. In February, I wanted the application to be available all the time. So previous to February, I was on the free tier of Heroku, which is fine for getting started. If you're getting started yourself, use the free tier. It's great. I can answer your question about graphic design too here in a minute. So you can do free stuff. The downside with the free tier is twofold. If you don't use the application for a certain period of time, Heroku will kind of like turn off the app, and it will make it so that when you go back to the URL, it takes a little bit to start up again, which is okay if you're just testing stuff. The other thing that you can't do on the free tier is you can't actually hook it up to a domain, so that you're going to have a generated name that comes from Heroku. So again, if you're trying to like create a project that you want to share with other people, you're going to have to move into the paid tier, but that's fine too. And then you can see there's a period where the cost was like $7 a month. I'm setting this up to handle more than a handful of customers. So I would like to be able to handle lots of customers, but this cost right now with the server load that I have, the reason it only costs $7 a month at that stage is because there's only like one web server that can handle a fair amount of traffic, but I certainly wouldn't be able to handle thousands of people. So there'd be some scale up costs that would go into that. So if you notice, it costs about $7 a month, and in about May, I had my first customer start paying. So the service is intentionally cheap. Like, I'm not trying to make a huge profit off of this. So it's like $5 a month. And I know the homeschool market is particularly price sensitive. So if I priced it too high, even like $10 a month, people in that community will not be very receptive. Let's put it that way. And I'd rather come in kind of low and then gradually over time increase if it becomes popular, and I need to make more and have a higher load from all the customers. So cost stayed around this point the same, and then you can notice the Stripe costs go up. And this was a transition month. And what happened in July is Heroku, when you work with a Heroku database, it allows for 10,000 rows in a database. So all of every record, every manipulation of data that I had to work with in the system had to fit within 10,000 rows. And I'm making this app works on having tasks and stuff. Whoops, that is the real site. We don't need to be over there. Sorry. Let's go back to the demo server. So I'm not like showing off stuff I shouldn't be. So with the homeschool application, there are tasks that students are assigned to do. So every course that might be there might have hundreds of tasks in it. It's meant to span for an entire school year. And students are going to be in multiple courses. So, you can easily create thousands of activities for a student to do over the course of a year. So by this point in time where I hit July, I was running into the 10,000 row limit. And to get around that, you have to then pay for Heroku's database tier, which is about $9 a month. And you can see the cost jumps up to essentially $7 and $9, and then I have about 96 cents worth of tax every month. And that's where I'm at today. And I think at this point, short of there being a bunch more traffic and me needing to do more web workers to handle more load from more concurrent users, I can actually stay right here. So then I have some users that this is the monthly user, and somebody decided to sign up for annual. And so over time, I'm getting some more users. It's still, you can see the totals here it's still in in the black in this picture, but I recently had another user sign up for an annual, which should come in later this month. So it should just flip into the black instead of being in the red. And that just means above and below zero if you're not with those economic terms. So that's the cost there. All right. Yeah, no problem. Happy to be transparent on this. Like this is just a side project. If this was more my business and I had a bunch of like accountants and all that stuff, I might be a little bit more hesitant to kind of get into that. But at this stage, it's sort of there's nothing much to it. Okay, getting to your other question, you'd asked about digital marketing and graphic design. The graphic design on this app, so I did make the logo myself. I have enough skills that I can make a silly looking apple, and I did design most of this. Well, that's not true. I started with a landing page that is available for Tailwind. So I'm using Tailwind CSS on this app. But then I've heavily customized this landing page. So somebody gave me a starting point. So I didn't do these fancy swoops and swooshes, but I did do all the color selection and all of that and some of this stuff down here. So I've kind of pulled pieces together from various areas to get the look and feel. The actual, let's see, like the images that you see here come from a really useful service called Undraw, which is a very neat, like you can see, you can have these images, you can search for things. So I could search for, say, students, because I'm I'm writing a homeschool application. You can see this. You can pick an image. Before you want to do it, you can change the color. So I could say, oh, I want my stuff to be green, and you can see it kind of, so you can make it match your color selections, your palette, and then add images here. So this is a really great thing that this person, Katerina Limpensona, I always get her name wrong. I probably butcher it in pronunciation, but this person created these images and makes them free to use on sites. So as someone who is not a super proficient graphic designer, having those kind of assets available is pretty awesome. So that's kind of the extent of it for images, then Tailwind, and then there's like a blog on this application that uses a Hugo theme. So there's kind of what I've done with the actual like design. Okay, getting to your question about marketing. I've done very little marketing, which is probably why I only have a handful of users. I've gone to a forum. I've gone to a couple of Facebook groups, and I'm not trying to make a big splash because, again, I'm happily employed with my job. I'm not trying to create a totally new thing that will replace my actual like primary income. I'm looking to do a couple things. Like, part of this project is to be able to share with folks like you of how am I building this stuff. Part of it is to solve an actual need for my family, and then if I can make a little bit of money on this on top of that, that's gravy. So there's all of my thoughts on that stuff. Hopefully that all makes sense. All right, let's get back to some coding so that people can see the Django stuff and Python stuff that you might actually be here for. Hopefully that was a little good tangent to go down. We're now assuming that it's going to be a request post. Yeah, that's true. Never know how long a job will last. And we're going to do this call to isValid, so which means we need to do a clean. Now, we've said that the IDs coming in from this data are going to look of this form. So the data in this part of the application, I believe will be at a data attribute. In fact, we might be able to confirm that. So let's do this. Let's print out the data. Let's do the request, and then let's fail here. Because if we don't fail, then PyTest will not show the standard output. Okay, what happened? It's not showing any data. That's not cool. Oh, that's because it's doing a delete now, and I said I wanted to do a post. So it's not even hitting this code. That explains things. So we can change this to a post for the moment. We'll leave the test delete because that is the activity that we're trying to do. All right, here we go. So you can see the data that's coming in. I'm using hash IDs for my IDs, so they're not primary keys. They look like a number, but we'll be able to split off and take this element right here, and you can see it's a query dict, which is the data structure that Django will transform post data into as it tries to process forms. I'm also curious. Let's see. I don't think there'll be anything in clean data, but let's just check it out just in case. Maybe what Django will do is pass along clean data if there's nothing to verify, but I honestly don't remember. It might be empty too. Okay, that's empty, and the data dictionary, the query dict, has everything we care about. Okay, so we're going to use this, and we need to get out the task IDs. So those are going to be a set of strings. So we need to get the task IDs, and we can do that by, how should we best do this? We can split that off from, oh man, it's probably not as easy as I want it to be. Well, let's rethink this then. I think it's possible with a checkbox to set a value. So it doesn't have to just be on. We could actually set the value. And so let's do this. Instead of having it be on, we want it to be the task ID. So let's change that to an F string, and then we can do task ID. So this is maybe a clever little hack, but what this will do now is that when we're going through this data, in case there are other things that I put in here, I still want to check that it's got the prefix of task on it, but we can get out the task IDs by doing this. We can say, we can do a dictionary or a list comprehension, and the list is going to be the ID, which I'm going to, Python uses ID as a built-in function, so I'm putting an underscore on the end there. And we want to do for key ID in data items. So we want all the pairs. If key starts with task, and then close that off. So that's our comprehension. We're not using it yet, but let's just check that we got the actual data. So we still have that false in there, so we can put in the task. I wrote that name wrong. I'm going to go correct that. So it's the task IDs. Yeah, I might check you out, Tyzone, if I have some time. Oh, for my business. What are you in? What do you do, Tyzone? Curious. Let's see. We've got, yep, there we go. All right, so we got a list of IDs, which is good. So we're going to look up. We need to check that digital marketing. Okay. We need to check that all of these IDs are owned by this user. So that's the next thing to check. And I think in order to do that, I think what I want to do is not do that test in this view. So let's close this views file because we don't, it's just in the way right now. We've kind of set up what we need. We're on the validation step. We'll get to the save later. We're really focused on the form. So let's go to the courses, course test forms, and write a test case here. So we got the test. We're going to have the class test course task bulk delete form. It's going to inherit from test case. And the reason I write form tests is because they're much faster than view tests. When you write a view test, and a view test that, like what we were just looking at a moment ago, is actually using a Django test client. And the test client, while being a really useful tool, it means that your request that you're going to try and test against is going through the entire Django stack, including all of the middleware, all of that stuff. It's going to go top to bottom, which makes it good for like an integration level test. But as you could see, or maybe you didn't see, but it takes about a second and a half, or it was a bunch of setup time to get it started, and then like the actual execution time is a little bit longer. For a form test, it's a lot faster if I can just make the form and then do like what you can see down here. 5 jobs, dang man, or gal. I don't know your gender, and I don't care to know it unless you want to share it. That's a lot of stuff. Okay, so we want to check that. We need a test to check that all of the IDs, belong to the user. So we want to check that the failure case will raise a validation error. That's what we want to check. So test only delete users tasks. That's what we're going after. And let's put in the doc string that a user may only delete tasks for their school. Good on you, being a captain of industry. So we need to do some setup. So we need basically something along the lines of this. And then we want to assert, yeah, it's very much like this test. Let's just copy this one as a starting point. Yeah, streamers are fun to watch. They can be very entertaining, especially like I like Anthony Sotili. He does a lot of stuff, but he's a prolific Python developer and works on PyTest and stuff. He's pretty entertaining. Not sure what he's doing these days. I haven't checked on his stream in a while, but he's got some good stuff. All right, so we've got our test set up. We want to change this to be the course task delete form, which is, or the bulk delete, which I guess means it goes over here. So course task bulk delete form. And we'll come back down to this test, change this to the course task bulk delete form. And then we've got the data that gets passed in. This is not the right data, so let's delete all that stuff. We don't need it. We need a task. We need 2 tasks. So one is going to be, let's see, is there a course task already in use in here somewhere? Surely. Nope, there's, all right. Well, seriously? There's not a, wow, okay. Guess not. So we need to bring in another factory. Factories make it so that I can make and work with generated database data, and they kind of act as good placeholders and allow us to connect things properly. So we need the course task factory. And we'll come back here to this test. And so what data has to go into this test in order to have it trigger this not is valid condition? So the first thing we need is a task. So this is the first task. We'll call it task to delete. And we'll say that it's the course task factory. and it needs to be connected to the actual user somehow, which I think gets annoying. Yep, I remember this gets annoying. Okay, let's bring up the other test file because I'm sure I've done it here. So yeah, it's a bummer, but this is actually how it has to be wired together because of the way the data is modeled in the application. And I'm not going to go into how all this is. I sometimes bring up a model diagram, but I'm not going to make you all look through that this time. But just know that there's like a big tree of data, and a student is connected to a grade level, and courses are in the grade level, but the grade level is what has the connection to the user. So you have to make a task that is connected to course, connected to a grade level, and yada yada. Just take it on faith right now that this is the right way to do this, and we'll move on because I don't feel like I need to go into it again. So we've got a course task that is now connected to this particular user, and this is what we're going to delete. We're going to use the key. So remember, the key needs to be the prefixed by task, and it's going to be task to delete, and it's going to have the ID, and that'll be the key part. The value part will be the actual ID. So that's just the stir of task to delete .id. Okay. Now, to do this test entirely, we also need, we'll just call it another task. And this is going to be, if we just call course task factory and don't give it any parameters, that's the important part, then it's not going to be associated with this user. Won't have all of this breadcrumbs to connect the two together. So if we also put that in here, we'll put it in here like this. It's going to follow the same pattern of task, another task ID, and we get the stir of another task ID, like so. So now we've got the data. And this data is, hopefully you agree with me, the wrong data. Like this, a user, someone should not be able to delete somebody else's work. That's what we're trying to guard against. If I run the test, the clean method's not doing anything yet. If we come up here, I mean, it's printing the stuff out, but it's not doing anything. And you can see there are the two IDs, so that's all good. But this should be returning false so that this assert passes. All right, so now it's time to actually do the check. So we know that the number of tasks that people want to delete is going to be the length of this list, right? The thing that we want to assert is that the user are all of these tasks within the user's school. So we want to do a query on the course task model, and we might have to do some kind of like joining with, like I said, there's this kind of complicated setup, so we have an equally complicated check to make sure that it's right, to make sure we find the right data. So we want to roughly compare. Let me sketch out what I think the clause is going to look like and the validation error, and then we'll do the actual query. So we'll say users tasks. That's the query set we're going to go for. And it's going to be the course task model. And we need to do a filter. And we need to filter. What is it we need to filter? The course tasks are connected to a course. The course is in, we're going to do this, essentially this filter. So we need to get all of the grade levels that the user school has This is going to be a little bit of an inefficient query, because you can think about if the user is using the application for years and years and years. Like if, presumably my kids are elementary aged, and if my wife continues to do this for a long time, there could be a lot of grade levels that each of my children are in, because each school year has multiple grade levels. So 10 years with 2 kids, with each doing grade levels, it's what, 20 grade levels, which I guess isn't that big to check on. So maybe it's not really a big deal. So what we need to check though is the grade. Is we need to get the right grade levels. All right, and so we'll have to make the grade levels in a minute, but this is the query set that we're going to get. And whoops, that's telling me I didn't close that off. So that's our filter that we're going to have. And what am I doing wrong here? Closing parentheses, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Not a list. That will be a list eventually. So grade levels doesn't exist yet. That's okay. We'll make it exist in a minute. So the actual thing we want to check is if the length of task IDs is not equal to the user's tasks count. I realize also that my filter is wrong. Need to modify that. Then we want to raise a form validation error, which is there's a way to say, well, no. It goes like this. We want to use self add error. That's an easier way than raising a validation error. Yeah. And is that right? No, that's not right. I think it is a form validation that we want to raise. And then we want to say, well, I don't remember what we wrote in the test. So, sorry, you cannot do that. I don't know. Okay. So this needs to be forms. We still need to make grade levels. There's also, this is going to be way off. Right now, this is like all of the user's tasks ever, which is ridiculous. What we really want to do is we want to check that the ID is in the task IDs. So what this is really, I think, what it's going to do is a union between like the IDs that the user said, hey, I want to delete these, and the courses and that are actually deletable or can be deleted from, I should say. And that should give us the right answer, I think. Let's see. Well, let's call this users deletable tasks. That name feels a bit better to me. And I guess I really am not getting that name right. Okay. So now we need to do a query on grade levels. So we need the grade levels, and we want to do grade level where the path here is a grade level is part of a school year, and the school year is part of a school, and the school has an admin, and that admin is going to be the user. And we can do, not that it really matters, we can do a values list on this, and we can ask for IDs, and we can make it flat so that it looks like a flat list. The combination of these things, I think, should get us the query that we're trying to get. Let's see how that goes. All right, so the form is not valid, and I still haven't fixed the error message. So, but it looks like we hit the state here. So We could, presumably this is a value of 1. Let's actually check on that. Because I want to convince myself that I've done this correctly. So users, deletable tasks, dot count. Yeah, let's run it again. It should be 1. Yep. This is a junk name. Let's fix this. Sorry, you do not have permission to delete the selected tasks. Rye Austin, yes, I'm using PyTest Django, which is what gives me the ability to do plain asserts right here, which is frankly my primary reason for using PyTest Django. I really like that aspect of it. I think it makes for a much cleaner syntax than the typical Django test case style and derived from unit test. All right, so now we can change this message to be sorry, you do not have permission to delete the selected tasks. Sometimes I like to retype that stuff just to make sure that I'm like staring at it again. Probably don't need to, but whatever. All right, and I think earlier I mentioned that the view test is much slower, so there's some startup cost here. But you know, if you could ignore the startup cost, if I was running this on a lot of tests, it's very quick, 0.68 seconds. In fact, let's run it on the whole file. Yeah, it was able to run 7 of them in 0.74 seconds. So really, the setup time is the dominant factor. Oh, cool! I appreciate you liking the podcast. I'm actually like overdue for another episode. I've got my recording time for podcasts is usually like a Saturday, like a Saturday morning or something like that. And both of my kids are doing sports this time of year, which Saturday is like the day to do sports, soccer and stuff. So I'm finding it hard to find the time to do more recordings. I will get to more, I promise, but I just haven't had the time recently. Oh, you downloaded Twitch just to ask. Well, that's dedication. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any more questions if you got them. Okay, I think so. We've kind of confirmed now. This is the check that I wanted to add on the form to make sure that somebody can't do something bad there. So that kind of, I think, gets the entire half of the clean that I wanted to address. I suppose I could return the data as clean data. I don't really care though. It's not really important. Is that true? If I returned it as clean data, then I'd be able to access it in the save. But that kind of creates a weird coupling, in my opinion. So I think I'll probably end up just doing this line again because it's easy. There's nothing, I'm not worried about repeating that in such a small class. Okay, so let's return to our view test. And this definitely is the right task that we're going to have. Now this test is doing something slightly different where it's saying like there is a task that the user does own, and we want to make sure that we're not deleting more than what we should. And that part is already asserted and checked for, so that's not a problem. The bit that we need to do right now is this guy. So let's drop, whoops, wrong button. Let's drop this comment, drop that, and run this. should fail. Oh, it failed because we still have that assert false from when we were poking at this earlier. Let's get rid of that. And the task still exists because we haven't done the actual save work yet. You can see we've got it here, and that's not correct. Okay, so looking at your question, right, Austin. Am I using a single database for all user data? Yes. Yes. Okay. Now that I'm comprehending your question, I was misunderstanding it for a second. The way. All right. Let's take the little detour. I do this maybe too often, but you never know who's on the stream. So apologies if you've seen this like a million times, but I'm going to show it anyway. So this is a generated model diagram that comes from. If you want to generate one of these yourself on a Django app that you have, you totally can. This is not something I created uniquely to myself. There's this Django extensions package, and it has this graph models app. There's a little bit of work and setup you have to do in order to create it, like some dependencies that you have to install. But if you're interested, go check out Django extensions and check out this. In fact, I'll drop the link here. All right. So the image in my app, the way this is structured is, here's the user. The user is the person authenticated, the person signed up for the application. When a user signs up, everybody is automatically, a school is created for them. I do this with a signal on account creation, basically. And so when working with a school year and doing any kind of data in any of this stuff, so most of my domain data is up here. And you can see, if you look at the names here, it's things that you might find in a homeschool, like grades, courses, tasks, coursework, and students, all that kind of stuff. But if you trace it back, and in fact, like you could think this model, this picture, as you could flip it upside down. The user's kind of at the top of this tree is the way I like to think of it, and all of the queries ultimately have to come through here. So what is checked on basically every view is, or hopefully every view, if I've been consistent, is that there's some kind of access control check to make sure, is the user, this particular user, allowed to look at this data up here via the school. So the user has a school, the school has school years, the school years have grade levels, the grade levels have courses, the courses have tasks, and so on. And that kind of all filters out that way. And this topic, this idea, I guess, is called tenancy. So there are multiple ways to do tenancy, and this approach works with a single database approach, but it does have this cost of, like, every time I want to do something, I have to be very careful that I'm looking up the right data and that I'm not letting weird access happen that shouldn't be happening, and that takes work. There are other ways to do tenancy, and some of those other ways involve using techniques that can allow you to effectively have multiple databases. I'm drawing a blank on the exact name in Postgres right now. Well, rats. There's a native concept to Postgres, and that allows you to effectively have, within a single database, you have multiple databases, and those can then you can apply each one of those to an individual user, and that way you get strict guarantees that somebody's not going to access somebody else's data from the database. The downside, or a downside to that approach, it has the positive upside. First of all, I guess I should say, is that it's very clear a lot of your access control patterns for what you would write in the app. It might be Django multi-tenant might be a good one that does it. Schemas, thank you, that's the word I'm looking for. is that, like, in your views, you just query for the user, and there's probably only one user in that multi-tenant environment, or you don't even need to query for the user, I guess. Like, you just make the assumption that that user is safe to look at some data, and that could be great. The downside, from my understanding of this multi-tenant approach that uses different schemas as a way to segment a database within Postgres, is that you need to be able to apply migrations to each one of those. So every time you want to change your database, what you're really doing is changing times the number of users that you have in your system. So that could have a cost when it comes to migration time. I didn't really know or have a lot of experience with that approach with this application, and I had a failed SaaS effort last time where before this project, where I just tried to do too many things. So I didn't want to spend my innovation tokens on doing that kind of stuff. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a really great article, Choose Boring Technology, where it explains this concept of innovation tokens and how much you can really apply to a project if you want to be successful. So check that out. All right. What else we got here? We need to let's close the image for now. Hopefully that answered your question, Ry Austin, about how I'm doing data management and tenancy and stuff. So we've got the save method now. We want to make sure that this assert will pass, that we actually do delete the task. And we know, because we just ran the clean, and our view, which I've closed, but we can bring that back up, our view is always calling is valid before it's calling save. So we can have confidence that when save is called, that it will be safe to delete whatever was in the data. And that's kind of the contract that you adhere to when you work with forms. It's a convention. It's nothing in Django is enforcing this, but it's a good convention. So here, let's go ahead and quickly pull out. Let's make that one line. I don't think we need to. So let's pull out the task IDs again. And there are multiple ways to do this. One way to do this is to collect all these tasks. So we could effectively do something like this. We could say tasks is equal to course task. Let's just do this version. This is not the version I'm ultimately going to select, but I'll explain the differences in a moment. And we could say filter where ID is in task IDs. All right. And then we could say for task in tasks, task dot delete. All right. Man, I really cannot type task IDs. My brain wants to put tasks in there every time. Okay, so this is one approach. If we run this, we'll probably get past that assertion and then fail on the message. Oh, no, I've got hard-coded 42, so that the whole thing passes. Cool. What's potentially right and wrong about this? Like it's not necessarily wrong, like it's totally okay to do this, but it has a certain cost. If you choose to take this approach, you get one query for getting all of the tasks that you want to delete, which is cool. And then the challenge, though, is that you have a delete query for every call to delete. So you're deleting tasks one at a time. So why in the world might you want to do this? One reason is with this approach, Django's signals. So if you have any signals that are connected to these models and you need them to go through, or if you have logic in a delete, like maybe you've overridden a delete and need to do some other processing before something gets deleted, this might be why you want to do this. But recognize that it's going to issue multiple delete requests to your database with every call to delete. Instead, what you can do is you can take the entire query set, so we still have the same query set, and I'm going to call delete on the whole query set. So it's unused for a moment, but let's just run the test again. So we should still get a passing test. So we still deleted the task. The difference here, in fact, this is no longer a query set. The tasks is not query set anymore. In fact, what tasks should be is the deleted tasks count. When you call the delete call, it returns how many were successfully deleted. So if we delete this, now the task will fail because that was hard coded, and the answer should just be 1. That should all be all that's in there. So it'll have a failure because the message won't match. And also I did it wrong. So I apologize. There's more to it than this. So we need to I want to make sure I understand this properly because there's 2 bits of data. They both have the value of 1. I think this one might be overall things deleted, and this might be specifics of like if you deleted what? Anything attached to this. So let's say, actually we can test this theory. Let's make this a little bit more complicated, or just add a little bit more. And back on that model diagram, you can do associated coursework. So whenever a student completes a task in the system, there is a record that's attached to do coursework. So I can say coursework and use the coursework factory and pass in, I believe it's course task, and give it a task. So that's just going, well, all that's doing is creating an associated foreign key record that should be affiliated with this task. I think what that will do is when I do this delete now, because there's a cascade on this, it should actually be deleting 2 things, the coursework and the task. And I think it's going to affect what we see in this, which is actually a tuple. So let's try it again, see what happens. I'm just reading your comment there, Ray Austin. Oh, cool. So you're almost got an MVP going. That's awesome. Yeah, exactly what Sparksy said. You know, I'm always excited to see people get into this stuff. Okay, cool. This is what I expected to see. So I told you all that there was this bit of coursework that's associated with this task. It's a foreign key relationship. And the coursework is set such that if the task is deleted, it's going to cascade and delete the course task. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's take a quick peek at the modeling. I believe this is in the student model, and there should be a coursework. I think so. Yep. So you can see in the model definition here for coursework that it is a foreign key to the task, and then there's the onDelete action. So what happens, because this is not a nullable thing, onDelete is what do you want to do when this thing is deleted? Do you want to make sure that it raises an error, like it's never supposed to be deleted? In this case, if someone deletes the task, it's going to delete their affiliated work. And that's what's happening here. But what we're seeing in the message is that what we're actually getting is a tuple of information. So the tuple includes the total and then a dictionary with the actual the number that we care about is really this one right here. And I'm not going to rename this thing. I'm pretty confident that that's the name I'm going to use for forever on this app. And I guess there's maybe some chance in the future where that could be wrong, but I'm going to just use the name and hard code it. I'm okay with that. And pull out the right value. So really what we're after is, let's unpack it like this. This is deleted info, and we want to return the deleted info course task. Should give us the count that we're really after. Ah, cool. Payroll app. That's kind of cool. I always like people making projects, and it sounds like you're using Django, so kudos to you. All right, so now if we have this, it should be a real value this time of just 1. Okay, this is what I expected to see the first time when I got a slightly different response. So we're going to replace the 42 here with 1, because that's what the real answer should be for this test. Okay, test passes, right? Great. So we've got our delete. We've got what? We've got the form is done as far as I'm concerned. It's got a clean that makes sure that you can delete the right thing, and then it deletes the actual stuff that the people asked for. Let's go back to the view and see what's left. With this, we have created the form, and we've also done the post delete handling, and we've got the message, so that's all good. Now, as I said, there was that error case where, like, what do you do when it's not this? And I'm really not, excuse me, I'm not sure what I want to do here. If there's a way, because again, this is going to use HTMX, and I don't know what I have to do to make HTMX like do a page refresh, because I would like to do this of what is it I want to do? I don't want to repeat this message. I want to pull out the error, which should be in form. Ah, man, this is like such an edge case. I really don't even want to think about this. Sometimes to do the right thing, though, you got to think about these corners that almost nobody's going to hit in your real app usage. Oh, cool. Yeah. Scratch your own itch, right? So when the form is invalid, if we saw in the test case that I pick, or not this test case, the other one, you can call this non-field errors. And this, I believe, will return a list. Let's go check that out, actually. Django form, come on, non-field errors. Yeah, it returns a list. So I am going to take advantage of, again, I don't want to spend like over engineer this to be something perfect. I'm going to take advantage of my knowledge of this form and I'm going to bake in that knowledge. So what we want to do is we want to say that the error message is equal to the form non-field errors and the first result. This is the part that I don't like. Like, I don't like the fact that I'm indexing on that. It's making an assumption that there's going to be a value there, which is not the greatest. But this is going to get that display error. Now, there's also that question though of like this question right here. What is HTMX going to be doing? So we need to figure out some way that we can signal to HTMX of, it didn't go well. This was a post. Now you need to refresh. So let's go to the HTMX docs and see if we can find it, find what we're looking for, and if there are ways to do this. And I don't think we're going to get to the template tonight. Hopefully we'll hopefully finish up at this point of like, answer this question of what we need to do, and then next time we can work on the template itself. unfortunately, I just have to read the docs for a minute, so you all can read with me. Keeps sending me to this parameters thing. I don't feel like this is the right place. This is like the middle of CSS transitions. This doesn't feel right. Maybe I need to nudge the author. Parameters. Okay. All right, I want to know. Where is it? There's probably a parameter somewhere on here. There's the anchor. That's to go to it, though. There it is. Parameters. Why is the documentation not taking me there? Parameters. Come on now. There it is. What? It was like bringing me up here. What the heck? Okay, well, anyway. So this is looking at the, what can we do with a post? And I'm kind of going against the grain by asking it to do a refresh. That's like really not what you should be doing. Like the whole point of HTMX is to be like Ajax and stuff. So this definitely feels sort of wrong in that way. But I gotta believe it can be done. Let's search for redirect. Trigger a client-side redirect to a new location. I wonder if I did return an HTTP redirect right here, if that would work, rather than re-rendering. That's probably an okay answer. Let's just redirect back to the same page. That sounds kind of dumb, but the effect is, I'm hoping anyway, that HTMX will detect that it's a redirect and do the actual redirect work. This is something we need to confirm. And then because we've got this error message that we've added through the Messages app, that will then display at the top of the page. It won't be the best experience, but again, this is like for a case that should never happen. Basically never happen. So what we need to do is test. So this was tasks delete bulk. I think I got this name wrong earlier. Task delete bulk. Hey, I got it right that time. Cool. And yeah. Now, the challenge with this is, unfortunately, because I've made this extra clause for me to check, I have to test this, which I'm not testing it currently. Like if we run coverage, if we run coverage, I think it's going to show that these are the only lines that we've missed, is this handful of lines, because I don't think I tested this anywhere. Because we moved that proper checking test to the form. So that's an unfortunate side effect of doing the faster test. Meant that we're not doing it in the view area that's doing the actual response redirect handling. And with the way I write this project, I make it so that it has to have 100% test coverage, because it's just me on this project. And I want to be able to have a good safety net. So I think, unfortunately, that might mean that we have to do another test at the view level, which is not what I wanted to do, but oh well. And I think we also delete the coursework factory now. It's a little bit more accurate, or at least it revealed the problem, but I don't think it's necessary to show that. And yep, 623. Those are the lines that we're missing. Bummer. All right, let's try and crank out this one test. It's going to be very similar to the to that form test, so we can actually use that, maybe that same data set, and we're gonna have to mix a little bit of stuff here. So test error redirect. Ooh, that was rough. Redirect. And error will redirect to the same page. Yuck. Like a really non-optimal solution. Okay, so we're going to take all this stuff. We don't care about the actual asserts. I guess we do care about the messages. So we want to check that that actually happens. And what else do we not care about? We don't really care about the undeleted task. Although we do want to have somebody else's task. So we'll call this another task. That, again, this is the condition that triggered the other one. So we can do something like this. And we'll say another task. All right. So I think this will do the 302 because this should hit the invalid path. How do I ensure 100% test coverage when I have code in other files? Well, I mean, I would write tests for those other files, and so I would probably write tests for those specific utilities if I had them. If I believe that they had value, it depends. Like if it was important to me that that I test the specifics of some kind of utility, then I would write a test for that. If it's like a private method, so like there are often times where I'm in a view and I will make a private method. And what I mean by private method is just a method that has a prefix underscore to kind of signal to a reader that it's private. I try not to explicitly test those. I still try to get coverage on those, but that's usually done through the public interface of whatever that object is. I don't know if that fully answered your question, Ry Austin, but that's my attempt. So let's run this test. This should fail here because it's going to actually to a different place, not the detail page. But it should hit those lines of code. Yeah, cool. So if we change this to what? Task delete bulk. Delete. Now it should still fail, but it should fail a little farther. It should fail on the message. So we're not looking for deleted one tasks, we're looking for this. And since I did test that, I typed that out earlier. This time I'm just going to switch this and paste it in. Okay. Cool. Happy to respond. All right, let's see if I got it this time. I mean, we should. We just saw evidence of it. But it'll make me feel good just to not have less than 100%. And it'll be kind of the way to wrap up this evening. While this is running, let's chat about what's next. The UI for this, we saw that a delete might not have the data requirements that we want, so we're going to use a post request. It would be totally possible for me to not do any kind of JavaScript at all and just do a straight up post. The challenge with that is that HTMX gives me a confirmation, the ability to do a little confirmation button. And being a bulk delete page, I want to be able to prompt people of like, are you sure you want to delete all of this? So that's really why I'm going to use it. But the template will be a table of information with checkboxes they'll be able to click off the ones they want. They'll click the button, little prompt will come up and say, hey, you need to confirm that you actually want to do this. And then hopefully, this is the thing we need to check, hopefully HTMX will handle redirects properly. And when it detects that we've done a redirect, it will actually do the real redirection. If it doesn't detect a 302 in the handling within the library, then we'll have to add on that response code. I think you can explicitly do this to trigger a client-side redirect. Oh, here's an interesting one. We could maybe do an HX refresh. Yeah, there's a bunch of options here that are ways to kind of trigger the thing that we want here. Huh. Refresh is actually probably what we want. I don't know. We'll play with it. I think the integration with HTMX here is going to be the interesting bit of this, or interesting to me. Maybe Django is newer to you, and doing kind of bulk deletion is interesting, and hopefully it is as you've been watching this. But this part of like bringing the fusing the two technologies together, I think is where some interesting stuff will come out of. So that'll be next time. We'll do that on the template. If you're still here and if you haven't already, please follow me on Twitch or give me a like or subscribe or whatever it is here. I always get the terms mixed up because I go put this stuff up on YouTube too. I do take all this content and I post it up on YouTube, so it should be available for your viewing pleasure there. If there's anything you want to review, if there's anything you want to go back to, I've got all that content up there that has this entire project. Not every minute of development. There are things I've done offline, but a lot of this project is done on this stream. So there's hours and hours and hours of content that you can go check out there. I do want to thank you all for tuning in, and wish you all a good evening. Take care.